Hi, everyone. My name is Raelan, and this is my occasional potential co-host, Blue. Trying to get him to take part in these videos because he's adorable, so why not? But even more importantly, I'm here with Erik, and Erik is here to talk about his journey with COVID and long COVID. And as I'm sure, oh, there he goes already. I don't have to tell anyone who's watching. We discovered, those of us in the ME/CFS community quite quickly, because originally my channel was all about people who are facing ME/CFS, but with this pandemic, long COVID, there was a lot of overlap for the people who were facing long COVID, and it was eerily similar. And we've started to realize that it works well for us to work together as we try to get past these conditions. So Erik is here to talk about his journey, his very exciting and inspiring journey with long COVID, in that he has almost fully gotten past it. So thank you, Erik, so much for doing this today.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
So why don't you tell everybody where you are in the world?
I am in the suburbs of St. Louis, Missouri. So for everyone maybe out of the country, that's right smack dab in the middle of the United States. It's about as middle as you can get.
So yeah, why don't you take us back? Tell us a bit about your journey with all of this.
Before I was sick, I was a very normal, I think I was 27 when I got sick. It was only 11 months ago, so I should remember. But the older and older I get, my memory goes. But yeah, I was just a normal guy. I'm married. My wife and I spend a lot of time together. We've got a couple dogs, so just living the married life with no kids. And I did video a lot of weddings. That was kind of my side hustle for quite a while because I was an educator before that. And when I got sick, it was actually last November. I got hit with COVID at a wedding because I'm an idiot and was filming weddings during a pandemic, and yeah, changed my whole world. Flipped the whole world upside down for me, and it's been a journey. When I first got sick, my first 2 weeks, like I said, I got sick in November, and my wife and I both got it. Well, I got it and I gave it to her. And our first 2 weeks were pretty mild for COVID. I don't know if you've had COVID yet or before. I'm glad you're shaking your head no. But it's been pretty mild for us. And really through the first 2 weeks, it was just a lot of uncertainty because this was back in November. This was before vaccines hit. This was before a lot of knowledge was coming about. And I had never even heard of long haulers or anything like that. I had no idea people were having long-term issues with it. And so, when I was getting through it, I started to develop some shortness of breath and, the typical, sick feeling. And it got to the point where my shortness of breath was so severe, it never really let up. And I ended up going to the urgent care, and they got me some prednisone, and that helped. And, after that 5 or 6 day dose of prednisone, the shortness of breath kind of came back. And that was kind of my big symptom for a while, because after my wife got over the symptoms of COVID and she was back to being normal, she went back to work and able to just start up life again. Although my initial infection of feeling, sick, how you feel when you're sick, that somewhat went away, but then it just kind of revved right back up after a couple of weeks. And I developed a lot of different symptoms like shortness of breath. And when I say shortness of breath, I had shortness of breath for 2 months straight. And it was nonstop. It wasn't during activity. It wasn't during, movement or of any kind. I was laying in bed because I've been lucky enough to be able to work from home. And so I moved my little office into my bed and just started working right there. And it was very scary not being able to breathe for 2 whole months constantly. That's really what was probably initially the scariest thing. But in addition to that, I developed a lot of chest pain. I had a couple different forms of chest pain throughout this whole journey of long COVID. I had I went to the ER because I kept having these chest pains right before Christmas. I went to the ER and I had them check out my heart, and they did an echocardiogram on it, and they did all their stuff, and it ended up being something they couldn't even tell me it was wrong. All my blood tests came back normal. The echocardiogram looked normal. They basically said you have costochondritis, which is like inflammation of the sternum and like the ribs right in this area. And they gave me some muscle relaxers, sent me on my way, really, and just said, "You're not dying. Get out of here." So, yeah, I had that chest pain. I also had another chest pain that at the time I didn't really know what it was, but I had now what I know as neuropathy that was going through my chest. It was just nerve pain. Don't know why this virus caused that, but I've heard of a couple other people who had it, and I ended up getting on some medication for that. But that was probably one of the most painful things there. Of course, fatigue. Fatigue in the beginning wasn't the biggest issue for me, but as the months have gone on, I'd say the past 4 or 5 months, that's kind of been the thing that's hit me the most, is the fatigue.
That's such a scary thing with COVID, is that the symptoms seem to be all over the place. So it sounds like when you get it, you don't even really know what to expect and if it's normal. I just hear like such a wide range of things that people are going through.
Yeah, that was kind of the big thing for me when I was sick, is I'm kind of that person who needs to understand things. So I would research constantly. I was on the internet nonstop, just trying to find any answers I could, and of course there were none. Especially back then, we were just learning about long haulers, and although I didn't get sick in the first wave of COVID, I definitely there were some people who had experience in this, but there was really no answers to be found, and that uncertainty is probably the scariest thing. That's honestly why I shifted my YouTube channel from, it was going to be about, video and, cameras and different things like that, to just getting any information I could out about what I was going through, to hopefully help people in the future have something to grasp onto, because the feeling of no hope and not knowing was one of the worst things for sure.
What was it like at the hospital or with the doctors? Like, I know it sounds like they sort of sent you home, but at that point in time, was there some sense from the medical community of, oh, this is long COVID, we're seeing this, or what were they saying to you?
Oh no. When I had gone to urgent care, I was still, within 2 weeks of being sick. So, they were treating me as such, but really all they could do was prescribe the steroids. There wasn't much else they could. I didn't need to be hospitalized by any means, but it was very concerning. When you have to think about breathing constantly, it's very concerning. So at the ER, it was pretty much just, as long as you're not dying now, you don't need to go on like a ventilator now.
Mm-hmm.
And that was for my chest pain.
Mm-hmm.
They said, "You're not having a heart attack. Your blood troponin levels, I believe, is what they checked. They said, that looks great. You're not having a heart attack, so you can go home."
So what were you thinking at that time?
I honestly thought, right when I was at the ER, it was mainly just, has this done something to me that where I'm actually going to have a heart attack? Like, even though I was getting these tests back and they were all saying, "No, you're fine, you're perfectly healthy," I didn't feel healthy. And so I was afraid that something with this new novel virus was going to creep up on me, and it was something that they couldn't detect, and I was going to have some kind of heart attack or something that was going to, I thought I was going to die. It was very scary. And I've never had an experience like it. So,
I
yeah.
am so sorry, Eric, that you had to go through that. I can't even imagine how scary that must have been. I think all of us were scared. Even when we didn't have it, we walked around in a state of perpetual fear. At least I know I did. I was scared of everything. The world felt so unsafe. And then to actually be having these symptoms and I really can't even imagine. So you said you're a researcher, so I imagine you want to know what's going on. So I imagine you started digging and reading, or what did you do from there?
Yeah, I was, you know, like I said, I was searching anything and everything. I don't know how many times I Googled long COVID recovery or long COVID cure or anything like that. And eventually it actually led me to your channel, which was one of the things that I was able to grasp onto. And it just gave me some direction as to maybe what this could be as far as the connection between long COVID and ME/CFS. And it did for me what I was looking for months and months and months, which was just having something and anything to grasp onto. So yeah, your channel was a big big part of my recovery, just mentally, my mental well-being. But yeah, as far as researching other than that, there were some reports of the vaccines helping long haulers. I don't know if you ever saw that, but there were some anecdotal reports of the vaccines making all their symptoms go away. And although that felt too good to be true, I was very excited to get my vaccine, which I did as soon as I was able to. March, April time is when I got mine, and I got Moderna. And you know, it's been so politicized now, but back then I was very looking forward to seeing what it would do for me and my symptoms. And although it didn't cure me by any means, like I said, I'm not fully recovered. I still have my ups and downs as far as symptoms go. I tell people all the time, I didn't start recovering until I got my vaccines. I didn't. I see my recovery in stages, or that's how I feel. From November to March, April time, there was no improvement. It was just pure misery for me through all the symptoms that would come and go.
Okay, so you said you see your recovery in stages. I'm very curious to hear about that. What did that look like?
The only way I can describe it is over time, through doing what I need to do to get better, practicing a lot of the things that you've taught on your channel and other channels, like Miguel. You just earlier this week you released Miguel's video. I've been watching him for several months now too, and he's been a wealth of knowledge for me. And just practicing a lot of the things that you guys are teaching, mindfulness and meditation, even breath work. I know Miguel talks a lot about the mental battle of ME/CFS and getting your brain in the right spot to actually recover. Practicing everything that you guys are teaching has been really what's been helping me get through it. But as far as stages goes, I tell my wife all the time, it may be a couple weeks, it may be a couple months, but I feel like every amount of time I will just all of a sudden be like, I don't have this symptom anymore. I don't have shortness of breath every day. I don't have brain fog anymore, because I had brain fog for quite a while, and that was one of the scarier symptoms too, brain fog in general. But yeah, I'll just notice, this is gone. I can go and do more things. I'm able to get out and do some things that I haven't been able to do for 11 months. And that's exciting. That's incredibly exciting. And, I can feel that I'm able to recover quicker. I'm able to bounce back a lot quicker when I do have those dips. I'll have a flare up or a crash, whatever, however you want to call it. Mm-hmm. And it won't take as long to come back up on the other side. So I see that as big progress for me. I don't know how your recovery ended up looking like as far as if you felt it in stages or not, but that's kind of how I've experienced it.
I mean, I do think of my recovery in terms of stages, but not exactly the same as yours. But I mean, that makes sense because we all have such unique journeys with this. It's interesting too to hear you talk about, like, I'm wondering if before you got COVID, if someone had told you that you were going to get this very serious illness and that you were going to be using things like meditation and breath work to recover from it, like, what would you have thought of that?
Oh, I had never done meditation in my life. I I had never really thought about it because before I was sick, I was as healthy as could be. Like I never had any kind of medical issues in my life. My wife actually, she used to say that I was perfect, and not because she's, I'm her husband, obviously, but I have 20/20 vision.
Hmm.
I have, I don't. My wife's Irish, so she gets sunburns easily, and I've got tan skin. I don't burn. I've got, no medical issues. I don't take any medication. She said I was perfect. So no, I would never think about. I never had any thoughts to meditation or breath work. I just figured you go get a pill for whatever you're sick for and you're better. And that's definitely not been the case because, as you've said many times, there's no Western medicine has no fix for kind of what we've gone through. And so these alternative ideas, although very foreign as far as like fixing yourself almost, or not relying on a medication, it very foreign to me, very foreign to me.
Yeah, it's interesting how we have to start changing the way we think about health and healing and taking care of our bodies. And it seems like virtually everyone I talk to has says similar things, and how mindset and stress and all of the dealing with those things were a big part of it.
I was just going to talk about how I kind of what led up to me when I first got sick, about all the things that were kind of piled on, the stressors that kind of piled on to leading up to actually getting sick, and
Okay.
why because I've seen in your other videos you talk about a bunch of stressors
Hmm.
that lead up to the big stressor that kind of puts you over the edge and kind of starts you down this path or this journey. And for me, like I said, I was your normal late 20s guy, and outside of like your normal year 2020 issues that we all kind of went through with a global pandemic, and there was a lot of civil unrest here around, mid to last year, and that was very stressful, especially here in St. Louis. There was a lot of civil unrest. There was, you know, I had started a new job in a whole new career field, so it wasn't, there's a certain level of stress that comes along with that. My dog died, and I know a lot of people might be like, it's just a dog, but we're big dog people. So that was a big stressor, and that happened right before I got sick. And then I think physically, I was just kind of running myself ragged. I was filming, like I said, weddings every weekend, sometimes multiple weddings a weekend, every weekend of the summer of 2020. And those are often 12, 14-hour days on your feet all day. And so, yeah, all that kind of led up. And individually, they're not a big deal, but when
Hmm.
you stack them on top of each other and you just don't give yourself a break, and then I got hit with COVID. I feel like that was just kind of the straw that broke the camel's back, and just kind of threw me over the edge into this nightmare that you know I've been going through, and that's my best guess as to why I got long COVID, and my wife, who obviously had the same strain and everything, didn't. That's my only idea.
It is interesting to think about, because I imagine a lot of us were having similar conversations when COVID first started, and we're all trying to figure out, how scared should I be? What are the risks? Who is at risk? And we heard, it was mostly medically fragile people that were going to get it really bad, or the elderly. But, every once in a while we'd hear about some super fit young person that gets taken down and gets incredibly unwell and doesn't get better. And we are trying to figure it out. And I'm sure there's a lot of reasons leading into that. But what you're just sharing has got me thinking, it's like a lot of us in the MACFS community, we had a lot of stress, we had things going on. It might be more than that, but that might have been part of the perfect storm of why these people that on the surface look healthy and strong and vibrant, we're like, how? What's going on? But we don't see the mental, the stress part of it.
Yeah, lots of times I just was laying there in bed wondering why on earth did this happen to me versus the millions of other people getting sick. And although there are millions of long haulers now, based on the numbers, So many times I'm just like, why did this happen to me? I have no pre-existing conditions. Uh, it's frustrating.
I'm wondering as well, because clearly you found the ME CFS community. Had you heard of this condition before this?
I had heard of chronic fatigue syndrome for, I mean, very little. Basically, I had heard of fibromyalgia. I would say that it was just one of those things that I heard you never got better from, which was another thing. Because when I first started watching like your channel and other channels, I was just thinking I was doing everything in my power to not believe that it was related, because that was like the worst case scenario in my mind, because that's all I knew of the disease was, or the condition was, you don't get better. That's what Google says. But the hope of seeing all of the recovery stories on your channel, and the relatability of so many people, and reading your book and your story, and just having that knowledge brings more belief than I can even express. I mean, that hope is probably the number one thing that I think helps someone recover.
I
And I
think
have a huge advantage over so many other people because of it.
Yeah, I think it's the fuel. It's because it's a marathon to get through these things, and the most important thing is having something. I always say that gets you up every day and finding that way to keep going and keep trying and keep researching. And even after, it can be so disheartening when you're trying different things that are helping other people, but then they don't help you, and it's just, yeah, I think that hope's so important.
Mm-hmm.
So if you were to sum up the things that got you, from your worst to where you are now, that helped you get here, what would they be?
So this is where I have a lot of notes. um, I mean, number one, my wife. I've been lucky enough to have my wife who can pick up the slack where I couldn't. I had to give up a lot of responsibility, especially in the earlier days when I was literally bedbound. I mean, essentially, I was not getting out of bed for several months. I remember I just saw it today downstairs. We have a couple of like those prepackaged like breakfast shakes. I don't remember the brand, but they're have a bunch of nutrients all in one thing. It's like a meal replacement shake. I lived off of those for a few months because I didn't have the energy to go make lunch or dinner or breakfast or whatever. And so just having my wife to lean on and say I have to be selfish and let her take care of things. She's been amazing in that regard, and I think that's a big deal. Other than that, time, and not just waiting it out, but time doing the right things is another big reason why I think I've improved as far as I have, as quick as I have, because I realized I've only been sick for 11 months, and you were sick for 10 years. Like, that's crazy. That's absolutely crazy. But I have a lot of advantages over a lot of people who've come before me, because I do have all these stories and people like you sharing your just what's worked. And I've tried a lot of different things. I know you had Dan Neufer from ANS Rewired on your show. I don't remember when, but I saw it, and I bought his program, his brain retraining, and that was a big deal for me. I think that kind of jump started a lot of things, just reframing a lot of negative thoughts and keeping a positive mindset. And I mean, there's a lot that goes into those brain retraining programs, but they're worth every penny. I mean, they're pretty expensive for someone who's a lot of times, we're struggling financially when we're sick like this, but I would buy it over and over again because I think it was well worth the money. And there's a lot of them. I think they're all pretty much the same thing, but I thought Dan was pretty relatable. So going through the brain retraining with ANS Rewired, and then just realizing that there needs to be a baseline. Finding your baseline, and I explain it to people this way, like you have to get yourself out of your own way. You have to figure out, like, what are the things that you have in your life that you might be doing or eating or whatever that are actively hindering your recovery. So, before this, I was eating what most people do. I'd have some meals that are more nutritious than others. I'd eat fast food, but like I just started cutting out all fast food, and my wife and I have really built up a nutritious diet. It's nothing. We haven't done the vegan diet or anything specific. It's just, what's good for you. You know that you need nutrients. You know that McDouble's not going to do it. And, just creating a baseline there. And that's just knowing you have limits, your energy envelope, and just sticking with them. And, you learn real quick, some of us quicker than others, I guess, to stop doing that boom and bust cycle of feeling decent one day and doing more than you should and then crashing, and just realize you're in it for the long haul. Like you may not like how long this takes to recover, but if you aren't willing to step back and slow your life down and just submit to, not to defeat, but submit to recovery and really give it the time and dedication that it requires, that I think that's a big part of it too. My mindset, I'm kind of one of those, like, always moving, always going. I've always got to be progressing in life in some way. I've always got to be getting better. I've always got to be getting something done, and just not anymore. Just, just relaxing and realizing that rest is the most productive thing that you can do sometimes is a big deal. Let's see what else. I've got lots of notes.
Oh, there were so many great things that you said in there. Just in my head, I'm just like, yes, oh, that's another good one. I think so many good points. I think that's really valuable stuff. Like the getting out of your own way is such a big one. And we don't talk about that much. We're looking for that cure, that next thing, the next program, the next magical diet. But, taking on that, like, what am I doing right now? Like, when you think about, like, if I stopped doing this one thing, I think I would make more progress. And usually even just saying that sentence, something will pop into our head because we know that thing we're doing that probably is hindering us. So that's such a good point. And around the acceptance, and I got goosebumps when you were talking about, 11 months. And 11 months is a long time. It's an absolute nightmare. But I was thinking about my mother, who was sick for 30 years. And then I was sick for 10 years. And now 11 months. And that's just... Imagine where we'll be in 2 years, in 5 years, especially with all the research that's happening now. That's the silver lining of this horrific COVID situation, is that more people are paying attention. So it's just so nice for people facing this now that there are options, there's hope, and it doesn't have to take you decades to get past this.
Yep. Like I said, I've had a lot of advantages just in information. And I think another advantage is I'm just a naturally positive person. So I think that plays a big role too. Because this is such a debilitating illness, and I had some dark days, especially in the beginning, and just, keeping your head on straight, and like I said, hope, it's worth its weight in gold. So
I think that's another important message to get out there as well, because, we talk about hope and being optimistic and being a naturally positive person, but that doesn't mean that you don't still have your really dark moments and your really down days. It just means that you find ways, at least I think, to pull yourself out of them as quick as you can. You don't get stuck there for too long. But no one's going to go through this, I don't think, always smiling, always optimistic, always, whoa, there's going to be those down times, and I just hope that people aren't being hard on themselves because, like, oh, why can't I just be more positive? It's a nightmare. You're not going to get through it with a smile on your face.
When I first saw, like I said, you had Miguel on earlier this week, and I'm like, well, man, I've learned so much from him. Like, I'm just going to be parroting what he says the whole time I'm being interviewed. Like, what he's taught about visualization is a big deal for me. I think he spoke about the visualizing of his pain receptors, when it comes to like your chronic pain and realizing them or imagining them shrinking and or growing and shrinking and creating a mind to body connection with pain, and actually teaching your brain to actually be able to control a lot of this. I mean, I've been doing that for a few months, and I've seen results in that too. Because I still get some chest pain here and there. I still get a little shortness of breath, and I've seen that work pretty well. I've been doing it for, I don't know, a month or so. So that's good stuff. And then like just visualization, your brain doesn't know the difference between reality and what's imagined. So if you're constantly stressing over your symptoms, if you're constantly stressing over being sick, and that's all you think about, which I've been there, that's where what your brain sees, is it sees you being sick. It sees you as a victim. I don't want to say victim, because that word has a bad connotation to it, but like your brain sees you as an ill person, and that can't help is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, it's something new that I didn't start understanding even until close to the end of my recovery, how powerful our brains are, and how so much of our physical symptoms and pain can be coming from, things firing in our brains. It just, firing old patterns, or it just gets stuck. I know I don't sound at all like I know what I'm talking about, but I think we're starting to appreciate that our brains are powerful. But I think that's a foreign concept to most of us. I certainly wasn't brought up to think that way about the physical pains and conditions I was having in my body.
Another thing I like to keep in mind is those adjustment periods of between when you are crashing and just staying positive in those downturns and realizing that it will come right back up. Not to lose hope during those downturns. Miguel has another video. Like I said, I'm just parroting a lot of what he says. He has a video of a pendulum as far as symptoms, and he talks about how in the beginning you have a big pendulum, and you have extreme symptoms on either side, and you have less or easier symptoms in the middle, and then right in the center is like your homeostasis. And it's like you just see your symptoms swing back and forth between your sympathetic and your parasympathetic nervous system, and like the fatigue and all that stuff. And it takes a long time in the beginning for that pendulum to move back and forth. And so you're often in the high intensity symptoms. And as time goes on, and the more you can work it, bring your nervous system to a calm state, you get closer and closer to normalcy. And how the quicker and quicker that it gets to the center, the less you're feeling symptoms, and you can finally feel normal again. I hope that makes sense. He explains it way better than I do.
I think that's such a great description. It's such a great way of visualizing those wild swings. And, as your recovery progresses, the swings aren't as wild, aren't as wide.
So, yeah, like I said, I heard a quote many years ago, and I don't remember who it's from at all, but it says something along the lines of, there are two ways of spreading the light. You can be the candle or the mirror that reflects it. And I feel like I'll be the mirror all day long of you guys and all your messages. Like none of what I say is original. I just have my own experience to tell. So.
Well, I heard someone said there is no such thing as original content. We're all just repeating something we heard somewhere. For the most part, there are very few original ideas. So I think we're all in that same boat. But the more of us that are putting it out there, and I think sometimes we think if we know something, everybody must know this thing. But not everybody has access to the same things that we do. So I think it's good. And the more we hear things, the more they kind of sink in. So what does it feel like now that you have come so far in your recovery? How is your health now, and how does it feel to get so much of your health back?
Yeah. So like I said, I feel recovery in stages, and I've put percentages on like how I'm doing now, like how far along I am to being 100%. And I don't really necessarily want to put a number on it, but I feel every time I hit a new stage and I gain a little bit more function back, and I gain the ability to go kayaking again, or just walking. When I first got out and went walking outside, I was like, this is amazing. Like, it's hard to express the joy of doing everyday things again and not having repercussions because of it. Just being able to, I did another wedding the other day, and it wasn't a big 14-hour long video or wedding, but I did it for 8 hours, and I was fine the next day. Like, being able to do these things and get your life back is some of the things that you just sit there and imagine doing in your darkest times. And it sounds silly, like, yeah, I get to go on a walk again, but it's everything. It's everything. So yeah, don't lose hope.
So do you feel that this whole process has changed you in any way?
Yes, I was. I think I would. I've always been sympathetic to people who have, I say, disabilities, because I used to be in special education, and essentially this is kind of a disability. And I've always been sympathetic to people who have other struggles in their lives, but it becomes a little bit more when you actually have an experience to marry along with that. When I can say, yeah, I've been there. I know what it's like to actually have mental illness. I know what it's like to actually go through and not have your life together. That's what it's felt like the past 11 months. But just more appreciative for health, and not just mine, but my wife's. Like, my wife just got over bronchitis like 2 weeks ago, and she's like, "Oh, I can go back to the gym and I can start working out again." I'm like, just let yourself rest, just a few more days. Like, just appreciating and giving your body the time and allowance to get better, and making that a priority, because it's more important than anything. You can make all the money in the world. Like, I've made more money the past year because I started a new job, and I make more money than I used to, but I haven't had my health. And it's like, I was so excited to make more money. I was looking forward to it and being able to, because I was a teacher, essentially a teacher. You don't make anything as a teacher. And I was excited to be able to maybe live, how do you say it, like, experience more, and I didn't have my health, and I would have gone back any day and been broke again. Because have my health, because it makes no sense to have all the money and not have your health. It has no meaning in the world. So I'm more appreciative of my health. Long answer.
So what about for people who are watching that right now are still in this? Is there any message that you would have for them or for yourself if you could go back?
Yeah, like I said, don't lose hope, because find what's right for you. That not everyone heals the same way. Find what works for you, and give it the time that it's worth for it to actually show results and bear fruit. It's a long tunnel, but there's light at the end of the tunnel. And you might be in the tunnel longer than you want, but there's something to be learned. You won't leave the tunnel the same person that you came into it as. So, but yeah, keep hope, because there is hope. Keep watching more and more recovery videos on your channel, because it was everything for me. So,
well, thank you so much, Erik. I really appreciate you taking the time to do this today and being willing to share your story. It really is, I think, so generous of people like yourself to do this. I have nothing but gratitude for you. So thank you so much.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
And if people want to reach you, you have an incredible YouTube channel that people watching should definitely check out. There's some really great stuff there. I'll have it linked in the video description. So as soon as you're done watching, click on that and definitely subscribe, because he is just a joy to watch and just really a great source of information. So where can people find all of your stuff?
Yeah, the only social media that I put out any information, all this, is on my YouTube channel. It's just my name, Erik Hodge. It's got my picture on there. all my thumbnails are just my face, so I'm sorry, but it's that's where I have my thoughts more put together and probably make more sense. But like I said, I'm just reflecting what I learned from people who have come before me. So if I can help consolidate that and give hope to somebody, then it's worth it.
Amazing. And I'm sure if people have questions for you, they can leave them in the video comments here. And I think we'll both be happy to respond to them there as well.
Yeah.
So, yeah, well, that's it for today. Thank you, everyone who was watching. I've got a playlist on my channel that is devoted completely to videos around long COVID. So if this is something you're currently facing, I'll link it up on the screen here and you can check that out. So thank you again, Erik. Thank you to everyone who is watching. I know most of the people who watch my videos are going through incredibly tough times. So just sending love to you. Hang in there. Keep going. You have got this. There's definitely hope. And that's it for today. I'll see you in the next video.